What's up, YouTube? Welcome to ExceedTheHype.com. It's your boy Lucrecio coming at you with another video. Alright, today's video is about the Phoenix Suns and can they possibly build a new version of what we saw with the Splash Bros. So, how am I getting at this? Well, Phoenix Suns are the most likely trade partner with the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. The current deal on the table is like Kyrie Irving for Bender, Eric Bledsoe, and a first-round pick, and Cleveland's first-round pick for this upcoming year. So obviously that's not a deal that's going to get done. Bender and Bledsoe probably isn't enough for Kyrie Irving in the Cavaliers' eyes, and the Cavaliers, I doubt, are very interested in Bender. Just generally speaking, I don't think the Cavaliers would be very interested in Bender. With that being the case, it makes you wonder, okay, well, who's the guy that they're going to include? Would they include Devin Booker? Well, more than likely not, being that Phoenix thinks of Devin Booker as like a budding star type, potential type player. So if it's not him, and from what I understand with the Phoenix Suns, Marquise Chris is not somebody who they're thinking about shipping out. He should be on the untouchables list. It kind of leaves one guy, and that one guy is Josh Jackson, right? The guy who they just drafted. They don't really know. He's kind of the wild card. They don't really know what to expect if his game is going to translate out to the pros like it did in college. We really just don't know. So since they don't know, I believe Josh Jackson would be the most likely guy who gets shipped off from the Phoenix Suns. So what does that do? It makes a new backcourt for Phoenix, the backcourt of their future, a backcourt that would include Kyrie Irving and Devin Booker playing in the backcourt together. And to me, a backcourt with Kyrie and Devin Booker, who does that remind you of? First of all, who does Devin Booker himself remind you of in the NBA currently? Out of anybody, I'd say he probably reminds me of Klay Thompson. He really reminds me of Michael Redd, but Michael Redd is long gone. But of a player right now, like with his catch and shoot and his sharpshooter type ability right now, Klay Thompson is the guy who comes to mind. He could probably handle the rock a little bit better than Klay Thompson, but Klay Thompson is kind of the guy who you would compare him to in the NBA at this point. And then Kyrie Irving is one of those types of offensive point guards who could be really good, who could definitely, if he had the right people around him, he could definitely be a very successful point guard in the NBA. So with that being the case, I really compare a combination of Kyrie Irving and Devin Booker to a combination of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. So if Phoenix were to put that backcourt together, I think it really would help them out. They'd be shipping out Eric Bledsoe, of course, who has been on the trading block. His name was thrown around in various trades, and then I think even the season before that, you heard a little bit largely because they just have a lot of point guards on this team. Let's talk about the point guards they have on this team right now. Tyler Ulis from Kentucky, who's a very, very, well, at Kentucky, I always thought he was going to be a very, very good player. I watched him a lot, and he was obviously very impressive in college. He is, the only thing with him is he is an undersized point guard. He is a lot smaller than usual, whatever, which is going to be the reason if Phoenix doesn't go forward with him or whatever, it's because it's going to be for that reason, as well as maybe they want to keep him for a backup point guard. They also have Brandon Knight on this team, who for a long time everybody believed he was going to be one of the premier point guards in the league. Well, I won't say for a long time, but coming out of college, a lot of people believed that he was going to be a really good pro. And at this point, he had some moments in his young career up to this point, but ultimately none of them ever really amounted to that much. And then for every high moment he had a lot of embarrassing moments. So that also kind of hurt his brand in the NBA. I don't think he's half bad though, honestly. I think if given the right opportunity on the right team, with the right supporting cast, I think he could definitely be a very for a while because he recently tore his ACL in the pickup game, so he's probably going to be out for a minute. Let's talk about the rest of this roster. Dragan Bender. I have to admit I'm not super aware of him. I don't know too much about his game. I've watched a very little amount of him, so I haven't formed an opinion yet. Eric Bledsoe, who I believe will be leaving this team. I like what he brings. Obviously, Phoenix is not that happy with Eric Bledsoe, so I really believe that he will get shipped out. If the Suns were to somehow get Kyrie Irving, he would definitely be a big part of that piece. Devin Booker is their cornerstone. So Devin Booker is their sharpshooter who they are going to build the team around going forward. Everything they do in some way is going to be based around making him the best possible player that he can be. So that's going to be very interesting. They still have Tyson Chandler. He still has a little bit left as far as all teams really ask him to do is protect the rim and try to get a couple rebounds or whatever. But his main job is to protect the rim, and he can still do that. He's still 7'1", so he can definitely still get up there and protect whatever. Marquise Chris is a crazy athlete who Phoenix is very, very high on. He's one of those like really long three. I'm assuming he's going to play a lot of four as well, but he's just a really long dude or whatever. And I believe they're really high on him. He's another reason I believe that Josh Jackson is not going to be super untouchable and may end up a Cleveland Cavalier. Because Josh Jackson is kind of, even though I believe Josh Jackson is probably a better defender, but he is basically that same type of player. Another like long wing player or whatever. And they have a lot of them on this team, so I could totally see Josh Jackson being shipped out. Jared Dudley, once again, one of the older players on this team who are kind of on their last legs, but because they have such a specialized skill, they can still stay around for years after their career probably should have been over. But yeah, he's still there, and he'll still give you the corner spot up threes and still shoot 40%. So as long as that's all they require him to do, he's going to be able to be there, and he's going to be able to do it. Derrick Jones is another one of those like long perimeter defender, athletic wing players, and that's exactly what he does. He was in the dunk contest last year. He put on a show, and he had a couple of those like type of highlight dunks during the season. He's just really long and really athletic. I believe he's going to be a player they keep around there because having players like that is always going to be very useful, but especially going forward in the NBA, having those long wing players, especially knowing that you're going to have to go against Golden State at times, is always a good thing. You always need that kind of athleticism. You always need that kind of length with your perimeter players or with your wing players. Let's talk about Alex Len for a second. So Alex Len was a very high draft pick. It's going to be very interesting. He's also going to be somebody, if he can continue to improve, he was supposed to be somebody that this team is building around as far as, being their center for the future. Ultimately, we will see because the time's kind of up on him since he's now a free agent. So since he's going to be a free agent. His time's kind of running out with Phoenix. It's going to be a situation where if they really feel like that he's come far enough that they'll continue with him. If not, they're probably going to let him walk because he hasn't been super effective for them up to this point. But who knows? He's still a very young player that can change as well. Elijah Millsap, not very familiar with him. And then when you go down the rest of this roster, it's not very good. TJ Warren is another player who I think has a very good chance of being traded. He's another long perimeter three or whatever, a long perimeter wing player or whatever, who can guard multiple positions and he had a couple high scoring games last year. I think the jury is still out on him, in my opinion. I don't know exactly how good he's going to end up being, but he's definitely somebody who still has some trade value. If they don't really believe in him going forward, they could just drop him off or include him in the trade package, possibly also to Cleveland or whatever the case may be, if they wanted to keep a pick instead. But as you can see, this Phoenix roster isn't the best roster. You can see how they've been struggling the last couple of years because they just really don't have a whole lot of talent right now. That's why I really think there's a high probability of them jumping for the Kyrie Irving situation now that it's available. And ultimately, they will end up giving up Josh Jackson. I mean, that's just what is going to happen. Because I just went through the whole roster, and other than like Devin Booker, these guys, and if you want to say Marquise Chris as well, these guys they just don't really have a whole lot of talent on this team. As far as when you compare this roster to like a Denver or a Golden State or a Portland or any team in the Western Conference, this roster just doesn't stand up. It's just literally not good enough to compete in the Western Conference. So they're really just gonna have to throw caution to the wind and make a move. And if that move is Kyrie Irving, that would help them tremendously because it gives them a big scoring punch, and that'll definitely be a good situation for that team. So that's my video on Phoenix. So always stay tuned. Most nights I'm going to be coming with a different team on this live stream or whatever, and who knows, your team probably is going to be next. Alright, so if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it, and see you next time.